Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Dr. Kent Show. Giving psychology away continued. What I want to tell you about today is I want to convince you of the link. I want to establish the evidence for you of the path from Cain to the Khazarian mafia. I think it's important to get that done. I'm late to the party. I apologize. You all should have had this information earlier. It just is that I, like many others, am fearful because if we tell the truth, we get targeted. Remember what it says: love truth and justice. That's what it says in the Bible. One of those commandments that's not pointed out very often to us. The biggest problem that people have is understanding how the descendants of Cain ended up in Khazaria. Khazaria, let's just say it's the Ukraine, just for the purposes of simplicity. Khazaria was much larger than Ukraine. The Ukraine is in what was the heart of Khazaria. It was a big empire. It was a major empire. They had a standing army of 40 million. They loved war so much. It was a full-time job, and they were on hire to their neighbors around them. They were probably, well, not the original mercenaries, but they certainly were mercenaries. As far as I can tell, everybody's saying the year 1200 AD is when the White Russians and the neighbors ran them off. I believe it was 1100 AD, and I believe that the year for conversion was approximately 700 AD. So at that point, what I want to establish for you, and I'll probably go backwards on this one, and I'm going to cover this as fast as I can because you all like to keep them under 21 minutes. Okay, so you ended up with the Ashkenazi Jews, and among them, not all of them, you can't say that all of them are. That would be very unethical, not logical. So when the Ashkenazi arrived, they brought in some, the Khazarians brought in some with the Edomite seed. So not all Ashkenazi had Edomite seed. That would be just about impossible. What we can say for certainty is that when the Bulgar of Khazaria decided to convert, and he was ordering his nobles to convert so they would be loyal to him, when he ordered them to convert, the Jews, if you will, that were at Mount Seir migrated northward into Khazaria to help them convert. So that's literally how that serpent seed arrived in Khazaria. Those fellows migrated up, brought their genetics with them, their DNA with them. Okay, let's step back a little bit more. About the time of well, there's different arguments on different things. I think what's important to note is that the children of the Khazaria, of the Edomites, were always present in key positions. One of the most important positions was Herod the Great, who was called an Idumean in the Bible. Idumean is the Greek word for Edomite. That was a very important thing, that word remained in the Bible, so we would be able to identify what Herod the Great was. In approximately 148 to 143 BC, there was the Maccabean revolt lasted approximately 5 years. At the end of that, John Hyrcanus was victorious. He ruled the roost. He had conquered all the others. He won out. John Hyrcanus gave an edict, if you will, a command, and this proclamation to the Edomites was really simple, and it was a real mistake too. He told them, either get circumcised and worship the one true God, or die. So he gave them a simple choice. You either do this, or I'm going to kill you. And he meant it. So those folks made a very common sense decision. They decided, okay, fine, we'll get circumcised, will mainstream into the main line of the Jews. The problem is that, the descendants of Esau, Edom, uh, had had Canaanite seed in them, and the Canaanite seed was from two Canaanite women that Esau took to wife. Esau, and this is in the Bible, so we've got it hands down. This is the facts. When Esau saw how much marrying his first Canaanite, taking the first Canaanite woman to wife, disturbed his parents, Rebekah and Isaac, he decided to take a second one to wife. So we have that rebellious spirit, that rebellious character, that fellow that ignored the orders of Yahweh, and it says in the Bible several times, go look this up, it's about 5 times in the Bible, do not give your daughters to the people of the land for wives for their sons, and don't take their daughters for wives for your sons. In other words, do not intermarry with the Canaanites. And the warning was anybody who did that was out of the family, basically. Excommunicated, out of the family. Yahweh was done with you. That was it. You weren't getting back in. Well, Esau took 2 of them. Then, I'm assuming he had children by them. Then he realized what a stupid mistake he made. What a god-awful choice. He realized what he had done. And he repented. And he repented in tears. It's in the Bible. Even though he cried, repented in tears, it's in the New Testament. Cain was not forgiven. It wasn't forgivable. It was a done deal. However, Cain decided to try to right the wrongs by doing the right thing. So he took a 3rd woman to wife, and this time it was a daughter of Ishmael. However, this particular daughter of Ishmael was A-okay. She was actually a member of the family. So he married one of his own kind. And that didn't even do it right there. Even though he finally capitulated, he finally repented, relented, and corrected himself, it was too late. Esau settled at Mount Seir. Mount Seir and Esau became known as Edom. Edom was the name for red. How do you get the nickname? He had earlier made another mistake, and that is that he sold his inheritance to his brother for a bowl of red porridge. Red being Edom, red lentils. And Jacob apparently was a really good cook. And Esau said to him, what good does my inheritance do me if I perish due to famine, if I die because I don't have any food? What the Bible does not say, far as I can tell directly, is why Esau was so tired. I'm going to cover that right now. The reason Esau was so tired is because for 3 days and nights he was up and he was running from the bodyguards of Nimrod. Esau had slain Nimrod, and he stole Nimrod's garments. That's an important set of skins that Nimrod was wearing. I'm going to cover that because at this point it's myth. I hope some of you find it in the other non-biblical texts, the other books that should be in the Bible. Nimrod apparently was a great hunter against the Lord. In the Bible it says a great hunter before the Lord. Well, he was against the Lord. He was hunting. Apparently what Nimrod liked to do was he liked to hunt. Nimrod was also a descendant of Cain. He liked to hunt people. And the other thing is that it is said that he had inherited somehow the skin garments that Yahweh, Creator Father, made for Adam and for Eve in the garden. Remember, they were naked, and then we have the first bloodshed in the garden, according to many people, and that was that Yahweh slew some animals, took their skins, and made clothes for Adam and Eve, for his children. Well, apparently, the word was that this garment made made Nimrod invisible. And maybe he just thought he was invisible, but supposedly while he was wearing this garment, he had superpowers and enabled him to hunt in stealth mode, so he couldn't be detected. Um, we also find a Babylonian garment mentioned when Achan did his big mistake. There's three major errors or major sins in the Bible, and the first one would be that of Balaam, and that's a sexual oriented sin. And Balaam taught the Israelites brought them some perversities that they didn't have before, and that's pretty easy to understand. Most of us today suffer from that. Most of us call ourselves sinners because of that. Um, that's easy to understand. Achan, it was gainsaying, speaking in a way to get a bribe. It had something to do with bad mouthing, with undermining reputations, with gossiping. I still don't understand that one very well. I might be guilty of it and might be blind because of that. I just don't know. But that's one of those that I want to study. And then these three things are mentioned throughout the scriptures. And I don't even remember what the third was. So I'm lacking. I got to read the Bible and go into that. This Babylonian garment showed up when Achan stole the wedge of gold and buried it in his tent. And if you read the story, at that point in time, the earth opened up and swallowed him up with his tent, his family, all of his belongings. He had actually challenged, I think it was Moses at the time, challenged his authority. So we do have that rebellion aspect of it as well. So this is an incident that needs to be studied so we can understand what not to do. And so he kept a wedge of gold or a wedge of silver for himself, had it in the tent. As a result of that, there was a great plague brought upon the people, and they wanted to know who's done this, what's done, and they drew lots to see, where the lot fell upon, and it fell upon, upon that tribe. And anyway, I've got to cover that in another separate lesson. The one nice thing about teaching you folks is I get to master it much better. When I was a musician, I taught it. It helped me to master things better. And I enjoyed doing that, and it gave me a little bit of income. Basically, you've got Cain. Cain murdered his brother Abel, gets kicked out of the garden, goes east to the land of wanderers, to the land of Nod. There he builds cities, and he takes wives from the Mongolians. His children, I'll call them half-breeds. They're all hybrids at that point, because that's exactly what Cain was. Cain was half fallen angelic DNA, satanic DNA, if that makes it better for you. Father was Gadriel, one of the leaders of the fallen angels, one of the 5 leaders. And they settled in the promised land. It became known as the land of Canaan. And there was all kinds of anomalies among them. And when Joshua went through, Yahweh told them to kill them all. Of those that were some sort of genetic predisposition from Cain and from some others. So there was something wrong with them. They didn't abide by the natural law. They violated Yahweh's law. It looks like, according to Eustace Mullins, Yahweh worked with them for 400 years. Shem was a big player in all of that. Shem was a mighty warrior for sure, but he actually defended the rest of us. If it wasn't for Shem, the rest of us wouldn't be here today. In case you're wondering, the Sphinx in Egypt is a monument to Shem. The Egyptians said that they didn't know who built the pyramids. It was some wanderer. But they didn't want to pay any tribute to Shem. Shem actually went to Egypt. There he found every evil there, and he conquered. He kicked butt. Shem also had a problem with his nephew. I'm going to get into that a little later. I got to refresh myself and read this Bible some more. Do get this Bible. This is the one to get. put the light on this thing so you can see it. The proper name or version of the King James Bible. Yeah, I've got links in the description here. You go to my website, givingpsychologyaway.com. A couple of tabs there. Get the Bibles there at the lowest price they're ever going to be. The distributors told me that the prices are going to be getting altered. Right now they're at the lowest possible. You're going to get it for roughly half price. And these things are going to be going up because I don't think we're going to be able to get these published, printed up so easily. But who knows? Who knows how things are going to open up. What we have learned is that the American eagle cannot live without the Russian bear. That's a good lesson to learn. Our financial system, because of the Khazarian mafia, because of the banksters, is so vulnerable that we have to remain interconnected with our Russian brothers. And they are our brothers. Russia came to our aid during our Revolutionary War and during our Civil War. And we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Russia. As a matter of fact, Alaska should be an independent country, a whole nation unto itself. The United States never bought Alaska. You all just leased it for 100 years, and we're way past the expiration of the lease. You leased it for $7 million. That was what the Tsar spent on his Navy. And the $200,000 went to bribes, probably to Seward since he set the deal up. But who knows whose palms he greased in the rest of the Congress to get them to approve the leasing of Alaska for 100 years. I think Alaska needs to be independent because we've got the natural resources, folks. If we tap one well up on Gull Island, it's game over. Then we just have to build that pipeline out. I don't know how far it is, but we could build that in one summer. And thereafter, we wouldn't need any other wells. We wouldn't need to drill the Arctic Wildlife Refuge. We wouldn't need to put another hole in the ground. Why? Because that one well in 1974 was discovered to have enough oil in it alone, to provide the nation's oil, complete use, 100% use of oil for 300 years. And the pipeline can only carry 20% of the oil that we use. So, you know, if that's 20%, 5 times 300 is 1,500 years of oil. That pipeline would be full all the time. It would be healthy. It would be robust. That state government in Alaska could afford any government they want. I hate to say that, but I would like to see things improving in Alaska. You know, a rising tide lifts all boats, all ships. Usually that's the case. Well, what I wanted to get at was the simple fact that most people don't understand that Esau settled at Mount Seir and his people stayed there. And then at the time the Bulgar decided to convert to Judaism, Esau's descendants, the Edomites, went up and helped those people with their newfound Jewish faith. That's how they ended up there. From there, they were driven westward, settled mostly in Poland. Very important that you know these things, folks. The Jews have been malaligned. They've been taken advantage of. They've been used for evil. As far as I can tell, the evil ones have, they infiltrated all of the seminaries around the world, in our nation, by 1850, and they were in most of the Bible translators, screwing things up, putting the wrong words in there, changing the meanings of things. Why do I like the King James Version of the Bible? This corrects the problems of the Greek translations, the Septuagint, the problems we got from the Septuagint by Ptolemy II. Ptolemy II took out Yahweh's name. And that really throws things off. You really have to get this particular version of the Bible so that you can learn his name. You know, first commandment is, thou shalt not have any gods before me. Well, how do you do that? I mean, how do you do that if you don't know his name? So you've got to know his name. It was YHVH. There were no vowels in Paleo-Hebrew. So we fill those letters in today and we make it Yahweh. Now there's a few other variants on that, but all are in agreement that the The Paleo-Hebrew letters YHVH are consistent across all these traditions. So you want to get this one in particular. It's easier to follow. It's easier to understand who's talking, who's acting. This will help you to know, well, to be able to better discern who it is. But even in this, we have to be careful because you have to understand the context. The Canaanites, the descendants of Cain, the descendants of Esau, the Edomites, the Idumeans, ended up in Khazaria. They weren't the bad spirit of the place. That was already there. Those people were horrible to begin with. We've also got another fellow to talk about, and that's going to be Simon the Sorcerer, Simon Peter, Petar, of Acts. He became the first bishop of Rome. He was a magician, and he also was, it's important to follow him because what you're going to find out is that the Antichrist, in my opinion, there's two forms of the Antichrist. One is an institution, corporation, an institution. Khazarians for sure, the Khazarian mafia. The second is a man, because as I read this, we're all going to marvel when he gets ushered out, walked out, and he gets publicly exposed and walked, maybe a perp walk. We're going to be amazed at this fellow who's deceived the entire world. So right now, today, you and I live in a world of deception. Almost everything that we know or we think we know isn't quite kosher. It isn't quite right. And so all of you boys and girls that think that everything's been invented, everything's been discovered, they know it all, and you don't have anything else to learn because they know it all. They don't know it all. We don't know it all. So you fellows and girls who want to study history and write books and correct us and show us the details, you're going to have a lot of work to do. There's probably going to even be folks that do forensic historical analyses, perhaps even charting the crimes that have occurred so that we might be able to correct some of that stuff. I do know that this medical, military, industrial complex wants to take us all out. Oh, I'm past the 21-minute mark. All right, folks. The Khazarian Mafia are descendants of Cain. Don't hold hard and steadfast any of these concepts. Hold them loosely. Accept them as generalities, because not all of men came from Adam. And certainly not. And the other problem that we have is that not all Israelites were white. I'm sorry, folks, but the evidence is just too strong that there were black Hebrew Israelites. I don't think they were a very, very big group, but they played a big part in preserving the Bible. They've got better copies of the Bible than most of us do. They took care of the Ark of the Covenant, perhaps. We're not sure where the Ark is. It could be in Arkansas. It could be over here. It could be traveling around the planet. I can't wait till that thing is discovered. I think we're going to find it. I think we're going to find out it's an energy device. I think we're going to find out that it's free energy. You're not going to pay for your electricity anymore. As far as the cars and all that stuff goes, I still think fossil fuels is the way to go, but you got to stop calling them fossil fuels. That's the enemy's language, and you assume that it's a limited resource. Hogwash. You need to think of oil as a mineral, and the earth constantly produces it. It's nonstop, it's unending, it'll always be there. And there's nothing wrong with carbon. Some of the other chemicals, carbon monoxide, sure, but carbon actually feeds the trees. It actually needs to be out there. Likewise, the sulfur in diesel, it's a lubricant, but it also feeds the crops, it feeds the trees. There needs to be a little bit of sulfur out there, elemental sulfur, to grow crops. Otherwise, we don't get to eat. So there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of sulfur in the diesel. We need some good scientists to tell us the truth about it. Instead of being fumes emitted per gallon consumed, we need to have it fuels emitted per mile driven. where the rubber meets the road, because you get better mileage when you don't have that ethanol in there, and when you don't have to run with DEF fluid and weaker fuels. Okay, I'm out. Thanks for bearing with me. Talk to you soon. Again, Cain and the Khazars. Bye-bye.